Welcome all you ghouls and ghosts to the Freaks and Zeeks podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Psycane.
And we're here to talk about everyone's favorite horror movies. Today for our very first episode, we are looking at The Evil Dead from 1981, directed by Sam Raimi.
Yep.
As a baseline, just kind of to start off this first episode and review, Psycane, what did you think of The Evil Dead?
I liked it. It's interesting. It feels like it shouldn't work, but it does.
Is that because it was filmed and created with a budget of like $20?
Yeah, partially. I think a lot of that you can tell. I mean, there's like multiple points that I wrote down that shots were like straight up just out of focus. I don't know. There's parts of it that just feel kind of, I guess amateurish in the sense that it was young filmmakers making a movie for $1.50.
This is Sam Raimi's first, this is his directorial debut.
Yeah. The only other movies he made prior to this were a couple college projects, one of which actually was the basis for this movie, and starred Bruce Campbell, but the main difference there was that Bruce Campbell was the one being possessed. Which is interesting. That obviously he's the main survivor, spoiler alert, in this movie.
I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say that Ash Williams is our main character of The Evil Dead and is our final guy.
Yeah.
But, alright, let's get right into this movie. We start off with how all good horror movies start off with. A couple of college kids in a car driving to some remote location where nobody knows where they are.
Yup.
And Scotty, our driver, is also one hand on the wheel, one hand on a mason jar full of moonshine.
Yup. And naturally, that goes poorly for them.
Yep, immediately, 5 minutes in, right about to crash into a giant truck.
Yup. And the steering wheel, I guess, gets jammed in some way. Which is very... It's such a weird moment, and Ash from the backseat makes a comment that he just got the car fixed up, because apparently it's his car, and yet it does that. It kind of makes me think that it's supposed to be the weird force that we see throughout the movie that's in some ways connected to the Deadites. And that opens the movie. Is the opening shot is it moving through the forest and then looking over a hill at them. And so that presence is immediately there from the start of the movie. And it's such a weird, moment to just put in there to, I guess, get the audience engaged immediately before we get to the actual meat of the story. So it almost makes me think that the point there is that force was jamming it and trying to kill them early.
Also, interesting little fact about that opening shot of the demonic forces going through the forest. That was filmed by having two people hold a piece of wood and then Sam Raimi with the camera hanging off that piece of wood.
Fantastic.
Many shots in this movie, especially of the evil force that we never really see, because it's not really a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is just filmed with two people holding a 2x4 with the camera sitting on top of it.
Yep, makes sense.
Or, honestly, I believe just someone running around with the camera. But there are some really fun shots, especially towards the end of this movie. But we'll get to those when we get to those.
Yeah. It's interesting how it's like not meant to be a physical thing, and yet there is some sort of physical presence to it because they react to it upon seeing it. So it makes that question of what is it? What does it look like? And how do they know it's obviously evil in some way?
Also, the opening scene with the car and our five main characters, Scotty, his girlfriend Shelly, Ash, his girlfriend Linda, and then Ash's younger sister Cheryl. Um, that whole, like, I love the hoops that you've jumped to get to the conclusion of it was the evil demonic force that was fucking with the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Um, I chalked that up to Scotty just not wanting to admit that he almost killed everyone.
Oh yeah, it could definitely just be
Just
that.
not of just not paying attention, and I'm quite sure that he was turned around in the driver's seat talking to Ash.
Yeah, because Scotty's kind of a dick.
Scotty Scotty has some of my favorite lines out of this whole movie. But yeah, right after almost crashing into a truck. The dialogue in this opening scene is so weird too.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like a parody.
It does. It connects way too much to Cabin in the Woods, which is obviously directly parodying this movie in many parts of it.
There's the scene where it's like Ash is like, this place can't be too bad, and then Linda's like, no, and then he's just like, it might actually be nice, and then she's like, yeah. And I was gonna say, is there a gas leak, but they're in a car. But it's just it's so weird. The dialogue just feels weird in this movie.
It's hard to tell why they're going here, besides the fact that they said they got it cheap. But it's like, why? So why are you going to a cabin in the isolated woods during what looks like late fall? So it's probably freezing. To do what?
Well, yeah, because as we can see later, they're all dressed in jackets and sweaters.
Yeah.
And Linda's wearing Michigan State Go Blue. But yeah, no, it's so weird.
Yeah. I just don't. I don't get
they're
the
just
logic.
on vacation.
They're just on vacation to a cabin in the woods, and Cheryl's gonna be awkward as hell because it's her brother and his girlfriend, and her brother's friend and his girlfriend. So like, I don't know what I would do in that situation. Which, by the way, the fact that Cheryl is Ash's sister is not established until after she's possessed. They don't bring it up at all until way later.
Honestly, most of the character names aren't brought up until like a solid third and like
Yeah.
like a good chunk into this movie.
Yeah, for like a solid 20 minutes or so, I thought Scotty's name was Rob.
I didn't know Shelly's name until I want to say like 40 minutes into this movie.
Yeah, when they go to start looking for her, I think is honestly probably the first time they say her name.
We also get one of so let's get to where they arrive at the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the best they could do for the most menacing shot. Like it almost feels it feels really campy. This movie is campy in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
But like it almost feels like that first shot of the cabin where it's just that straight on look.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like like there'd be like a tumbleweed
Yeah.
in front of it. Or it's like, oh, this is the spooky place.
Yeah. There's they rely a lot on the sounds there with like the clanking of this hanging chair that's outside of the house, that's just bouncing against the side of the house. That just gets progressively louder as they get closer, and the kind of ominous soundtrack. But yeah, it's like, it's just, it's a cabin. Sure is a cabin in the woods.
Yeah, no, these the world's loudest bench swing.
Yeah.
As Scotty by himself walks up to the cabin, everyone else is still at the car, like 15, 20 feet back.
Yeah, they're just like, go ahead. There's a serial killer in there. You're screwed. We'll be fine. Because nobody likes Scotty. Because he's a dick.
Nobody likes Scotty.
Nobody likes Scotty.
Oh yeah, wait, forgot to mention, while they're driving up to the cabin, we get a lovely cameo from the Raimi brothers.
Yep. Scotty, after nearly crashing the car, says the only thing that works is the horn. And he honks it, and we just see two dorks wave at them. And he's just like, oh, go to hell, I wasn't honking at you. And
Yeah,
it's
just two
Ted
fucking
and Sam
random
Raimi.
dudes.
Yeah. They're just hanging out on the side of the road, and we get our first Jesus Christ from Scotty, which is basically his catchphrase.
But like, alright, I don't, nothing, it almost feels as if it cuts right to dinner that night.
It basically does. I mean, it cuts immediately to night. Like, we see them unloading the car. We see Scotty open the door, and the light comes in. It's all spooky, because the house is so dark, and all that. And then it immediately cuts to night, and they're just kind of already hanging out in the cabin. And there's another weird moment where Cheryl is drawing this grandfather clock, this like small grandfather clock that's in the cabin for some reason. Really well, I might add. She draws it really well. And we kind of get the ominous wind and our first instance of the mysterious force saying, join us. And then her hand gets possessed, and she starts drawing the Necronomicon. And it's such a bizarre moment, because obviously it makes me think, what how are the demons doing stuff right now if they're not let out until later? What is this evil force, and why does it still have sentience / ability to even moderately possess someone like this when they haven't been summoned yet?
All great questions. Do I have the answers? No. Anyway, we're at dinner.
Now we're suddenly at dinner, and Ash tries
Everyone's
to give
having
a
a-
super awkward toast that everyone makes fun of him for.
We're all just doing great. Everyone's having a time. Bruce Campbell is so handsome.
Yeah, he really is.
And then right after Ash's really awkward toast, a cellar door randomly slams open, and fun fact, that cellar never existed.
Yep, it was just a, like, hole in the ground they dug, so all the shots in the cabin of the cellar door, obviously it has to be super dark in there because there's nothing there. So it ends up working out, because obviously the darkness adds to the ominous nature of it. But it was literally just a hole in the ground, and the rest of it was filmed, I don't know where. It was like, I think it might have been Ted Raimi's house that they filmed the cellar scenes.
I believe so. It was one of the Raimi's houses.
Yeah, and
But yeah, no. The cellar in the fucking cabin was just an 8-foot deep hole.
Mm-hmm. It's it's funny, because at dinner, all that's said about what happened with Cheryl is like Scotty briefly making fun of her for it, and it's like, okay, so I guess she told them, and we just don't get to see that, where she tells them this super weird thing happened, but even she's just kind of blasé about it.
Yeah, just your hand started moving on its own, and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it happens sometimes.
So after the cellar door slams open, we just send Scotty down by himself.
Yeah, because no one likes Scotty.
No one likes Scotty. And then they start calling for Scotty. And Scotty's not answering. So Ash is like, I'm gonna go down there, get me a flashlight. And they're like, Scotty has the only flashlight. We packed a single flashlight.
Just one singular flashlight for 5 people, as you do.
So Ash gets a lantern and he gets down there. And Scotty just jumps out and just scares him.
Yeah.
Where it's like, alright, fuck you, Scotty. We're in a really weird situation right now and you're having fun.
Yeah.
And then just, Ash is totally cool with it.
Yeah, because he's probably just like, oh, that's Scotty, just being a dick. Because that's what Scotty is. He's just a dick.
Yeah, and then after Scotty's like, oh, check out what I found. And after showing some of the worst gun safety I've ever seen,
just directly points this old gun they find in the basement at Ash's face, and he's like, don't worry, it's not loaded. And I was like, you don't know if it's working properly. It is. It could have just gone off in Ash's face and killed him.
doesn't matter.
I'd also like to mention how it's supposed to be super dark in this basement, and all Ash has to light it is a small-ass lantern, and it's clearly, like, it's lit in such a way that, like, mostly the background is lit, and it's supposed to just be the lantern light, and it's way too much light and in the wrong position for just the small lantern Ash has.
So Scotty's showing off this old recorder and this fucking book that it's the first time we see the Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, they don't realize, like, at least Ash doesn't realize, like, first touching it.
Mm-hmm.
It's only after they play a little bit of the recording, is when they're told that it's made of human flesh and written in blood.
Mm-hmm.
That they're like, oh, ew.
Yeah.
I feel like just by touching it, you would be able to realize.
Yeah. I don't know. Because would it just feel like leather? Like just like a leather-bound book? Or I don't know what that would feel like. We get our
Yeah, no, it's just ugh.
Yeah, we get our consistent little eerie high-pitched music with these and very falling violins as we introduce the Necronomicon, as well as this a long knife. Like it basically looks like a sword.
Yeah, that Kandarian dagger.
Yeah, which you don't even realize is a dagger at first because they just show the hilt of it, which has a skull on it. So I didn't even realize that this was a dagger, and I didn't even realize that the dagger was the same thing as it until later.
So after the little scene in the basement, we're immediately in what is essentially the main room of this cabin, since this is literally a 4-room cabin.
Yep.
So they're all huddled around the fireplace with the tape recorder, and
Scotty's telling a story and is like, this guy was a real turd, okay, everyone hated him. Shelly just goes, oh, so like you, because everyone hates Scotty.
Yeah, also, before they start actually playing the tape recorder, it's just some, like, random banter as Ash is figuring out how it works. And fucking, I could have sworn Scotty just turns to Shelly and says, I'm gonna break your face. And then Ash is like, guys, I got it working.
Wait, I did not. I did not pick up on that. Oh my god.
I just don't fucking... Like, either I'm crazy or that's an actual line in the movie, which I think is fucking hilarious.
That's incredible.
But, yeah, no, after playing the recording, they just let it play while what is very clearly, like, this ancient incantation like talking about like, yeah, I found this in the ruins and this book that is bound by human flesh and written in human blood. Yeah, let me just say this phrase out of it, and they're all just sitting
Yep.
like wide-eyed, like eager to hear it, and Cheryl, the only sensible one, is like, guys, stop playing it.
Yeah. And maybe it's partially just because she's already been affected by it, that she has such a strong reaction to it. But at the same time, yeah, fair enough.
Scotty starts teasing her, and then Cheryl lets out this fucking crazy scream. And then that's really... Oh, wait, no. And then a tree crashes through. Like a branch crashes through the window.
Yep.
Which, that is just actual glass. Real sharp-ass glass.
Yep.
This was not a safe set.
No, not in the slightest. There were multiple window breaking in this movie, and it's all actual glass because I guess they couldn't afford fake glass.
No, this is just an actual cabin. No electricity, no nothing. And Bruce Campbell, I think he hurt his ankle really early in production. And his best friend, Sam Raimi, just kept poking at it with a stick.
As you do.
Not a really great thing to do when your best friend has a sprained ankle. But, it got a good performance out of him, so there's that.
Yep. Guess that's our excuse.
And then right after this crazy fucking scream out of Cheryl and a branch just absolutely destroying a window, we just are immediately sent into this oddly sweet scene between Ash and Linda.
Yeah. Which is out of focus.
And which I think goes on a little too long.
Probably. But they're like, let's stay up and listen to the storm. And I'm like, what?
Hey.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing else to do. But Ash gives her this fucking magnifying glass necklace.
It's weird how he does it, too. He, like, she walks away to check on Cheryl. He, like, crawls up behind the door and, like, hides behind it as he looks at it. And at first I'm like, oh, is he going to propose? And then it's just this necklace. And then he goes back and pretends to be asleep with it on his chest. And I'm just like, what are you trying to do here?
He fell asleep quick. I don't know the order in which the scenes were filmed, but the whole purpose of the scene where it's close up of their eyes, of like being closed, being open, whatever, is just, the whole purpose of it is just so we can call back to it later.
Yeah.
But Linda gives one of the most fake reactions to this weird ass gift where she's like, oh, I love it, I'll never take it off.
Yeah, she's like,
it's like, you sure, like, Linda, this is a fucking magnifying glass? And then the movie's like, alright, enough of that shit, let's go check on Cheryl. And
we get a...
Oh my god.
We get a shot outside the cabin of just the forest looking in on them. And we just get a random nude shot as Scotty and Shelly are in their room and she's taking off her clothes. And then we see Cheryl alone and hears that mysterious voice again. And so naturally, with almost nothing on in the freezing night, she just puts a bathrobe on and walks outside to see what's going on, and walks super far into the woods to see what's going on. And I'm just like, what are you doing? It's freezing. You're hearing a weird voice in the woods. Don't you think you should get someone?
In my notes, I wrote down, why would you go out by yourself after you've already been scared 3 times?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. It does not make sense why she, one, wouldn't put on a fucking jacket at least, and two, doesn't tell anyone. Like, you'd think she would be like, hey, guys, I'm hearing weird voices outside.
Also, for all the outdoor shots of like the cabin and like when they're in the woods, the moon is fucking huge.
Yeah, it is. I guess it's supposed to
Like,
be like
I have that written down multiple times of that's a fucking huge moon.
Yeah, it's very huge next to the cabin. I guess in some way it's meant to be just ominous and threatening over them, but it's like the shorelines are creeping in on the Himalayas if the moon is this close to the earth.
But after the strangest decision in the whole movie of just, hey, let's go out into the woods by ourselves, so that we can get to the scene that literally everyone regrets.
Yeah. And probably the main reason this movie is still labeled as NC-17, because it was rated X when it came out. Obviously, NC-17 is the standard now. But even then, a lot of movies get re-rated as the MPAA ratings and standards have changed over the years. Many movies that were formerly PG are now labeled as PG-13 since that was introduced. Many that were formerly labeled as X are now just labeled as R. But this one is still strong NC-17, not only because of all the gore later that we'll get to, but because of this very, very discomforting and explicit scene where Cheryl is attacked by the branches and trees in the woods that end up just sexually assaulting her. And it is not, for as fun and campy as this movie is, it's such a like tonal whiplash because it's just so uncomfortable to watch.
Which Sam Raimi has said he wanted to make the audience uncomfortable with this movie, but not in that way.
Yeah.
Like, he still wanted everyone to be having like a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wanted them to be uncomfortable in the way of like, oh, this is eerie, guys. I don't know about this.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the, oh, this is kind of gross.
Yeah.
Because the scene starts off where it's like, oh no, uh-oh, this is going to be like the first bad thing that happens. But then the branches and vines start creeping up her legs. And it gets a little gross.
Yeah. It's a lot. And it's like, I think that they'd gotten the creepy vibe, especially with just the music, which I do think is, this movie, unlike a lot of classic horror movies, especially from the 80s, doesn't have super memorable, super iconic score, but it does have a solid, just creepy, eerie one that works for the movie and helps set up a lot of that tone and atmosphere. But this scene is just wrong. Like, why? Because nothing at any other point in the movie or at anything with the Deadites, I mean, there's some kind of weird stuff, but it's not, there's nothing directly like this, and it just feels so uncomfortable. Like, we could have easily just established that the trees are coming alive, will attack them, and so they can't get out. That's all you need to establish here, and, probably Cheryl getting possessed here. So it's like, all we need to do is, like, the branches cut her up and stuff. It feels so unnecessary to have them straight up.
Yeah, no, like, like I wrote in my notes, literally everyone involved is like, yeah, we shouldn't have put that scene in the movie. That was a little much.
Yeah. And we get some, as she eventually breaks free of the branches and runs back to the cabin, we get some, like, tribal music. Incantation was spoken. There was some, like, kind of similar noises on the soundtrack, but this is the first time that it's really felt explicit. And they said that it was ancient Sumerian texts, which just kind of feels like typical way for a horror movie to establish demons and the occult, is to always bring up that it's creepy because it's another culture that is foreign to ours.
Yeah, kinda. I guess the inspiration was very, like, South American with the dagger's design and with the fictional fucking creepy book that he found in the middle of these ruins that he was exploring. It's like, alright. But after Cheryl she runs back to the cabin and is as loud as you can be. And it takes forever for someone to get to the door.
Yeah.
How did no one immediately hear her?
Yeah, like what are they doing in there? Because she is just banging on this door, screaming for help, fumbling with the key ring, trying to get the right key in. Nobody comes to help her, like, and when she comes inside, all of them are right there. Why did they take so long? And it's also funny because when she drops the key ring at one point, when she goes to pick it up, she looks up and Ash is just there and the door's open.
Yeah, Ash grabs her arm.
Yeah.
And like a normal person, she's immediately like, I want to leave.
Yeah.
We gotta get out of here. And everyone's like, what? Calm down. Wait, what happened? And she's like, she was like, I was attacked by the trees. The force is alive. And they're like, what? You're crazy.
To be fair, yeah, that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely nuts. But I feel like there'd be a small part of them that would be like, well, yeah, we did find this gnarly dagger and this fucking creepy book.
And she is genuinely freaked out, very upset. Even if it's like, obviously you're not going to believe someone saying the trees are alive. But still, you'd be like, all right, we gotta leave. This is clearly not. But they're just, like, so ignoring of her for a while. And Scotty's just completely dismissing everything she says.
Nobody cares about Cheryl.
Nope.
Nobody cares about Cheryl, and it's honestly a little funny of how just nobody cares. But you know what? Ash is a good older brother. And friendly reminder with the scene of her knocking on the door, screaming for help. Ash's full name is Ashley Williams. Just putting that out there.
Yep.
But yeah, Ash is like, fuck it. Yeah, no, I'll drive you in the town. You can stay there for the night.
Yeah.
And the car isn't starting. And she's like, I knew this would happen. The force, it's not going to let us leave. And right as she says that, Ash gives the most big brother, I told you so stare right as the car starts. It's so good. Bruce Campbell's the best part of this movie.
Oh, by far.
So after driving in the woods for a little bit, they get back to the bridge that last time we saw it was literally falling apart.
Like a piece of wood literally fell out under one of their tires as they went over it.
Yeah, and they described it as sturdy as a rock. It's not.
No.
But another fun behind the scenes fact, they actually got to destroy that bridge themselves.
Ah.
because it was already slated to be destroyed, but the nearby town allowed them to destroy it for filming.
Nice.
Love that. After they get to the destroyed bridge, Ash just gets out of the fucking car.
Yeah, he gets out of the car like a decent... It's very dark out. He's a decent amount of feet from it, so I'm like, how did he see that? Then Cheryl starts freaking out as she keeps saying his name, and he just doesn't respond. She walks forward. We actually see that the bridge is destroyed. And she runs back and is still freaking out. And then suddenly he comes out of nowhere, back at the car, and...
Yeah, he comes back from the opposite direction he walked in.
Yeah, and is just suddenly there and scares the shit out of her. And I'm like, Ash, what the fuck were you doing, bud?
Almost comedically, after that scene, we're, like, immediately cut back to just all of them sitting in the main room of the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, well, that didn't work. Everyone except for Ash and Cheryl at this point are just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Ash has one headphone in, listening to the rest of the tape from the archaeologist. And part of me is like, why are we listening to the tape again? But then the second part of me again is like, alright, I guess Ash is starting to take this a little bit more seriously. While he's trying to do that, Shelly and Linda are sitting there with a deck of cards, and Linda's trying to guess what each of the cards are, and Shelly's just fucking lying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we really just gonna do Linda like this?
Yeah. We clearly see that the card is something completely different as Linda says what it is. And Shelly's just like, you got it! She's like, oh my god, guys, I'm psychic.
But then the actual supernatural force comes in when we get to see our very first deadite of the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
When Cheryl is fully transformed into this nasty makeup.
Just white eyes, very gray. Like, she looks like she's, like, decomposing.
And it just looks great.
Yeah, it does. It looks fantastic.
The effects in this movie are so good.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first kind of big action sequence in the cabin starts. And they just say fuck it, and they just, after hitting her with the butt of an axe,
Mm-hmm.
they just throw Cheryl in the basement.
Yep.
I wrote down on my notes, a side note, is it just me, or does Scott's hair just keep changing? In that one sequence, it just goes through like 4 different styles and lengths.
Oh my god, I didn't even notice. That's fantastic.
Like now, like this is when things start like really picking up.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Campbell does an amazing pratfall of just getting slammed into a cabinet.
Yep.
Real glass, by the way. Actual
Yep.
cabinet that he just throws himself into.
And then falls on top of him.
Yep. And also here in my notes, I wrote, we are very far from groovy Ash.
Yeah. Because he's not even taking initiative here. I mean, later, he's just completely frozen with holding the axe as Scotty yells at him to do something. And he just doesn't do anything until Scotty has to do it himself. Definitely not the badass quipping character that we all know. And in a lot of ways, it just feels like he just kind of ends up being the last survivor. Not for any reason of his own. You know, just being the most capable. Because he's not, really. He just kind of ends up being the last one alive and ends up managing to get out.
He's just a dude in this movie.
He really is. But yeah, as we're get Cheryl into the cellar and they put the chains around the door and she can push it up a little bit, which she really likes to do throughout pretty much the rest of this movie. It's just pushing up on the cellar door. She grabs a pencil and stabs Linda in the ankle, and
She
oh
just
my
fucking
god,
slams it in, and it is, oh,
It's so painful. It's just right in her tendon and just digging it in there as it like bleeds profusely. And she
A,
falls back into a lamp.
I was gonna say a good chunk of that pencil was in her ankle,
Mm-hmm.
which is just amazing.
Yep.
But so they put Linda down to sleep after throwing Cheryl in the basement and locking her down there.
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl's peeping her little head out with her two hands. It's just, I don't even remember what she's saying. I think she's just making noises at this point.
Yeah, I think she's just mumbling.
And Shelly just starts fucking freaking out.
And Scotty says, I think we gotta get out of here. I'm like, yeah, you think?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe you should listen to Cheryl, huh, Scotty?
Scott?
Nobody likes Scotty.
No, like Scott. Scott's the worst.
He really is. He sucks.
Pretty fast, Shelly is turned into a deadite.
Mm-hmm. She, kind of... Scotty says she should go get some sleep. Which, like, how the fuck is she gonna go get some sleep? How are you gonna fall
Linda's
asleep?
doing it.
I mean, at the very least, Linda has the excuse of having been injured and fallen back onto a lamp. So she's probably very physically exhausted. But nothing's happened to Shelly, and she's just watching all that go down. So how are you going to do that? But anyway, she ends up alone in the room, and they break glass right in front of her. Real glass, which goes flying at this real person's real face. We get... Oh, there's another out-of-focus shot when he tells her to go get some sleep. And then she screams as the window breaks, and they go look for her and can't find her. And she's just kind of not in the bathroom, not in the bedroom. And then as Scotty turns around, suddenly she's there. And
yeah, no, in the shot where he's looking for her and in the bathroom, that's one of the shots where I noticed where Scott's hair is very much shorter than what we started with than what we had. Yeah, no, now we have our second deadite, which we're calling deadites because that's what they're named in the second one.
Yeah. They're just kind of demons in this movie, but yeah, they are called deadites in the later movies, so we'll just call them that here.
Shelly's now a deadite, and the boys are fucking freaking out in two completely different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty's yelling. Ash is frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Like a deer in headlights.
She says, you have pretty skin, give it to us, which is a great creepy line.
So amazing.
Frozen in fear, Scotty's yelling to do something. Eventually, Scotty just has to grab the axe and just starts wailing on her. And Cheryl's over there by the basement, freaking out and pushing the cellar open, and then starts yelling, no, you love her, you can't do that. And he just fucking keeps wailing on her until she's just a billion pieces on the floor, still wriggling around.
Ugh, the gore and effects in the scene of Scotty just chopping Shelly into a million pieces is so good. And even the camera gets covered.
Oh yeah, it's completely red at one point. She's spitting up like what looks like milk or something.
I wrote in my notes, like, is Deadite vomit milk?
Yeah. It looks like the androids in Alien when they get
yes, it does.
fucked up.
It does look like
milk. I guess they ran out of blood, so they decided to use that. And by the way, Shelly scratched Scotty when she first popped up as a deadite, and we see them consistently from this point on, but it just looks like lipstick marks, like someone just rubbed some lipstick on his face.
Yeah, 15 of those $20 went into the deadite makeup.
Yeah.
We didn't really have much left over for everything else because the last $5 went into all the fake blood they bought.
Mm-hmm.
But now, Scotty's like, I'm getting out of here. And Ash is like, what about Linda? And he's like, I don't give a fuck about Linda. I'm out.
But yeah, he just leaves. And so Ash naturally goes to wake up Linda and be like, yeah, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here.
We get the raddest transformation of right by Linda's ankle wound. We just get this stop motion, these black, essentially veins and lines come out of her ankle and slowly crawl up her leg. And then, oh no, who could have seen this coming? Linda's now a deadite.
And she, like, gets up and, like, reaches out at him and is just standing there giggling this entire time. It's so fun and creepy. I think Linda has to be my favorite deadite. I mean, Cheryl's having fun over there. She's having a party. But Linda's just so creepy and, like, childlike. It's so fun and yet still creepy to me.
Fun fact about the deadite makeup, the contacts that they wore, they couldn't see out of.
They were super thick and very much hurt. You weren't supposed to have them in for longer than, like, 20 minutes at a time because it could genuinely scratch your corneas and do damage. They were forced to wear these for several hours at a time.
And they were stuck blind, so in pain and can't see, let's film a movie.
Yeah.
So, if I'm not missing anything, Scotty comes back in all fucked up.
Yeah, he comes back almost, like, immediately. He was outside for, like, 2 seconds. And already is coming back, and he is very fucked up by the woods.
And then he says the same shit that Cheryl said. Or he's like, they're not gonna let us leave.
Ash asks if he found another way out besides the bridge. And apparently he did, even though he was outside for like 2 seconds. And how did he get all the way there and all the way back, having found another way out besides the bridge?
If you found a way out, Scott, then why'd you come back?
I guess it's supposed to be just that the woods attacked him, so he wasn't able to leave. And he was kind of just forced to come back, all super fucked up, bleeding profusely, very much not okay. And Ash punches Linda as she keeps mocking him. And then he...
Ash just fucking rocks Linda.
Yeah. He punches her super hard. And she just keeps giggling. She's having a great time. And then Scotty yells to kill her. So he grabs the gun. And he's really...
says a little prayer.
Yeah, he's really struggling. He doesn't want to do it. And then all of a sudden she turns back to normal. Just Linda now.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I love the Deadites so much, is because they're just so fucked up in this first one especially. Where they just turn back into their normal selves to just fuck with Ash even further.
Because this is definitely Linda. Like, it's not even the Deadite pretending to be Linda. Like, it relinquishes control for a second just to fuck with them, which is so fucked up. And she's freaking out and crying and begging Ash to help her. And then the Cheryl demon is like, oh, I can take a cue out of that, and says in her normal voice, I'm all right now. You can let me out. And at this point, I'm just like, clearly something's up. I do not... Why are you going to trust her? But, of course, Ash does and walks towards the cellar. And then her arm just pops out and grabs him. And this is also when, as she turns back into just her Deadite voice, it's established that Cheryl is Ash's sister. And I'm just like, why are we just now learning this after she's already been possessed for half the movie?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And while all this is happening, Scotty is just fucked up on the couch.
Yeah, he's not having a good time. Cheryl's having a great time. Scotty's not having a good time. But yeah, as Cheryl attacks Ash and grabs at his foot, he ends up getting away, and now Linda is back to her Deadite form, and we get some eerie piano music as gives probably the most iconic line of the movie as she like sings in a weird children's rhyme type thing. We're gonna get you. And it's so good.
And then Ash is just so fucking fed up at this point. He just grabs Linda and drags her out of the cabin. Which I think is such a weirdly realistic response of just, I'm fucking tired of you. And he just drags her outside.
Yep.
And then doesn't really even do anything with her outside.
No.
He just drags her out there. And he's like, alright, fuck that.
Yep. Just drags her outside, comes back in, and...
We get a, hey Scotty, how you doing? Oh, not great.
he's not doing well.
Scotty, you gotta tell me about
fine.
You gotta tell me about the trail. And the Ash fucking smacks Scotty's bleeding out body a couple times to get him to answer.
Yeah, Scotty's very much dead at this point. And he just keeps saying, we're gonna be okay, we're gonna make it out. And I'm like, dude, you're talking to a corpse.
Next thing in my notes is Linda was outside. I think this happens the first time we're outside with Linda. Ash picks up a fucking log or something, which looks really light, and then just knocks Linda the fuck out.
Yup. He just incapacitates her for a second, and then here, after Scotty's dead, she just pops up in the window and stabs him with the Kandarian dagger, then licks the blade, which is always fun, and instead just pushes over Scotty's dead body and falls onto the floor, which just made me laugh really hard.
Like a wet paper towel, Scott just fucking hits the floor.
Yup.
I think the next big thing that happens is that we get Ash taking Linda out to the shed. If I'm not missing anything else, that's really the next big beat.
They fight over the dagger for a second, and he manages to turn it around and then push her onto it, which incapacitates her enough for him to bring her out to the shed and tie her to the bench there.
And then we gotta look at the chainsaw, which isn't really gonna come back. It's not important in the first one, but it will come back in the second.
Yeah, it's fun to see them like give a nod towards the chainsaw here when that becomes such a big thing in the next movie. And he goes to dismember her, which, as the recording said, is the main way to defeat them. It's that and burial.
I think also the dagger works. I don't know if they explicitly say it, but when Shelley was a Deadite and there was that whole struggle before cutting her up, Scott manages to slash at Shelley's hand, and Shelley just rips her own fucking hand off.
Yeah, it's so gross.
And then Scott...
She just bites at her hand and rips it off.
And then Scott grabs her hand, which is still clinging onto the dagger, and stabs her in the back with the dagger, which also fucks her up.
Mm-hmm. It at the very least incapacitates them. And while she's on the bench and he's about to turn on the chainsaw and dismember her, he sees the magnifying glass and just can't do it. He can't do it.
What I think is really funny is that when Ash starts to go to dismember, he starts at the fucking chest.
Yeah.
He starts like a little bit below the collarbone.
Just gonna cut her in half and then work through the two halves.
Yeah, in my notes I just wrote, holy fuck, Ash, you were gonna cut her at the chest? And then Ash is like...
Yeah, where else are you gonna start cutting her?
And then Ash is like, no, I can't do it. And then he unties her like a fucking idiot. And he takes her outside and he's like, well, time to bury her. Right next to where they buried Shelley with a cross that they fashioned out of sticks, like, really fast.
I don't know, it might actually be the anthropologist's wife, and he put that cross there.
No, that's definitely Shelley's grave.
It is? Okay.
That's 100% Shelley's grave.
Yeah,
because there's the scene where Ash and Scotty carry out Shelley's pieces, and where they're digging. So It only makes sense.
Yeah. So Cheryl is laughing her head off in there, and that ends up waking up Linda, and we get our nod back to the when Ash gave her the necklace as she pretends to be asleep when he looks back.
And then fucking after one more struggle with Linda, Ash just grabs the shovel and just fucking decapitates her. And like, fuck it, that's another deadite down.
Yeah, it's funny. It lands right on top of him, and the neck just gushes out blood all over his face as her like legs. I guess it's. I'm not sure if it's still somewhat alive or not.
Linda's body's still grinding up on Ash.
Yeah, which is kind of. It was kind of funny because I was like, "What? Are they trying to fuck him?"
I have a note written down of ew, neck juice.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a fucking super soaker. Just sprays right into his face.
It's not fun. He's about to get waterboarded by his girlfriend's blood.
And milk?
And milk.
Still don't know a deadite vomit. I'm pretty sure it looks like they used milk.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, no, that's Linda down, so Ash makes his way back into the cabin. And in the meantime, oh no, Scotty's now for sure dead. And who let Cheryl out of timeout?
Cheryl was banging on the door and managed to get the hinges off, so now she's out and about.
So Ash is like, fuck. So he grabs the gun that they had in the basement. But apparently Ash is a bad listener because when Scotty told Ash to grab everything else, since he was gonna take the shotgun and the tape recorder, Ash, everything else means the shells too.
Yeah.
Why would you grab the gun but not take the shells?
Because why do you need the shells when you have gun?
Anyway, fucking Ash stuffs his pockets with shotgun shells. And honestly, it's time for the final guy circuit.
Yeah, pretty much.
After blowing a few holes in Cheryl's face, which more amazing effects of just Cheryl's gotten grosser and grosser throughout this whole movie.
Mm-hmm. And there's some shots of her in the cellar that are actually Ted Raimi in the makeup, because obviously the cellar scenes were filmed later when the actress was not able to film with them. So Ted's just in the makeup having a great time.
Oh, the Raimi brothers, they know how to make a movie.
Yeah.
But, after Ash is like, well, shit, how am I gonna deal with Cheryl? Cheryl's taking bullets like crazy. Yeah. Ash almost forgets to reload, and right on cue, Scotty gets up. Uh-oh, Scotty's a deadite.
And by the way, in the basement, when he went to go get the shells, he completely skipped over this moment. It's so weird where he breaks a pipe down there and it starts bleeding everywhere.
Right. I almost forgot about that scene. Fucking
there's
just blood everywhere. The fucking light bulb starts getting filled with blood.
Outlets start bleeding. Yeah. The walls start bleeding.
That shit's fucking nuts.
It's just randomly bleeding everywhere, and then he gets the shells and they just stop. He goes back upstairs.
Oh yeah, and the rafters make really weird fucking noises because we get an above shot.
Yeah. We get a above shot of Ash just walking around, and the rafters make like the noise of like those big cylinders that you'd like flip around and they would make that weird sound.
I'd say it's closer to a knockoff lightsaber.
Basically.
Because it's really just a bunch of
He just walks back up, and we're getting a lot of tilted shots. A lot of this third act is just tilted shots.
Sam has a lot of fun with the camera in the last act. There's some fun, like we said, there's the above shot of Ash. There's a lot of fun zoom-ins on Ash's face. And nothing...
It goes upside down at one point and flips around his head.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
But, like,
He
at
also
this
sees
point...
the force outside.
Oh.
So, again, there's some sort of physical manifestation there with that force because he clearly sees it and reacts to it.
It's something. Maybe it's just a feeling. Who knows? It's never explained.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because also when he comes back in from burying Linda and comes back up from the cellar door, Scotty's corpse is, like, just not there during a couple shots.
Yeah, it's just where's Scotty? But in the scuffle with Scotty, and as Linda's trying to break back in, despite there being so many broken windows, she's still trying at the door. In the scuffle, the Necronomicon, which also isn't named in this movie, gets...
It's called the Necron du Manchal, or something like that. That's what the anthropologist says on the... It's not called the Necronomicon.
No, I believe that is also introduced in the second movie.
Yeah, Necron du Manchal is what the guy says.
That gets kicked close to the fire, and then Scotty just starts smoking.
Yeah. Oh, we get a great shot of Scotty is, like, lifting up Ash. And then Ash just takes his hands and digs his thumbs into Scotty's eyes.
Yeah, I have a note written down of, holy fuck, Ash, no mercy for Scotty.
Yeah, because no one likes Scotty. And just blood everywhere. It's so gross.
Yeah, they really went all out with all the fake blood.
Yeah.
And the effects of just, Ash just squeezing Scotty's head.
Mm-hmm.
And then right as that's happening, Cheryl decides to rejoin the fight. Scotty's pretty much knocked out of commission. He's not dead, but he is just laying on the ground like, oh, fuck.
Oh, there's a weird point. This is also a weird thing that we forgot to mention. When he comes back up from the cellar, is that he, like, looks in the mirror and reaches out towards it, and it's suddenly water.
Yeah, he reaches, he sees his reflection, and I don't know why, he just decides to touch it, and then a scene that very much reminds me of the first time the protagonist puts his hand in the TV of Persona 4. He puts his hand through the mirror that's now just like a pool, and he's like, oh, fuck. And then that kind of just happens.
Yeah.
There's nothing really to it. It's just a thing that happens. Which I feel like you could say for a lot of things in this movie, of they kind of just happen.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, no. Scotty's taken out of the fray because his eyes are gouged out. But, don't worry, Cheryl's picking up the slack by, beating Ash with a fire poker.
And then Scotty grabs at his leg and just digs into it. Oh, God.
After Linda already fucked up one of his legs. And
yeah, his leg is just getting... There's no skin on that leg anymore.
Oh, it's so rough. And then, thank God Ash picked up the magnifying glass off of Linda's corpse before burying her. Because he fucking essentially just, like, lassos the necklace onto the Necronomicon to start dragging it closer to him. Mm-hmm. Which I guess Cheryl doesn't fucking notice because she's just having a ball beating the shit out of Ash.
Yeah.
And he grabs it, and then he throws the book into the fire, which, of course, this is where we get our confirmation that was already teased with Scotty starting to smoke when the book was by the fire. The Deadites are connected to the book. Mm-hmm. And we get this fucking crazy sequence of stop motion, the Deadites just rapidly decomposing. And it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool as they just decompose and, like, hands burst out of them at one point. Like, fucking cottage cheese or something coming out of them that then just turns into, like, ash.
It's crazy, and it looks so good. That's really it for the Deadites. They're defeated. So now it's time for Ash to get the fuck out of here, and... right as he walks outside, the movie just goes, you really thought. And we get this amazing shot of
the sun's rising. We get triumphant music as he walks outside, and he's finally defeated the Deadites. And then the movie's like, nope.
Immediately cut to a shot that was filmed via Sam Raimi on a bike with the camera, riding from the woods through the back door of the cabin, through the cabin, out the front door, and right into Bruce Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
For one last final close-up of Ash screaming, of course setting up a sequel, and then, bam, that's it.
And then credits where we get this super upbeat, jolly music.
Just, oh man, what a movie.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one, because again, it feels like it shouldn't work. It feels like it should just be this messy, amateurly made, super cheap movie, and yet somehow it just works. It just is. I think it's just that it's so sincere in what it's trying to do, and just has fun with it, and does so much creative stuff that even if it's really messy in a lot of ways, it's just, you can't help but have fun with it.
Listening to us describe it, some people who haven't seen the movie would think, oh, this is like a disjointed mess of a movie. But when you watch it, it really does just work. It's a good time the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the sequel's even more of a good time.
Yeah, the sequel fully leans into the camp and the comedy of it, and they have more of a budget, and Bruce Campbell gets to just go crazy. And that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, because if I had to describe the original three, because for those who are not filled in, for this month, we are covering, the Evil Dead series, but that includes The Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and then the 2013 remake?
Mm-hmm.
I was only unsure because I thought I was trying to remember if it was 2012 or 2013. Doesn't matter. The remake. But, yeah, no. The series really does just go genuine horror movie to, like, a horror comedy to then a fantasy action movie back to just a straight-up horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, no. They're definitely going to be really fun to look at. Please come back next week when we cover Evil Dead 2. So, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.
Yeah.
Because this is the Freaks and Zeeks podcast. I'm your host, Joe.
And I'm Psycane.
And we'll see you all next time.
Goodbye!